All right, so we've got a couple things going on here tonight. Number one, the first thing I am doing here is we're going to break down a couple teams, but this is, just to be clear, also going to be a Q&A live stream as well. Always on Wednesday nights, I go through, answer a bunch of questions for the particular week of fantasy. Don't get scared off by the couple of team breakdowns that we're going to do, but we did have some team breakdowns that we needed to get through and make sure we give them all the due respect that they deserve. So that's what we're going to do in the first part. So for those of you just joining, we're going to break down a couple of teams right here. And then we are also going to, once we're finished with the team breakdowns, just get to some questions for Week 12 fantasy football. And we've had a couple injuries. I mean, there's been, a decent amount of injuries, I would say, that are guys that are coming back and new injuries as well. So, there's definitely some things to look forward to from that perspective. But yeah, let's go ahead and just start going through the first team breakdown, and then we will get to some questions here a little bit later. Like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support if you get value, and hopefully the people who I'm doing the team breakdowns are in here tonight so they can also provide me some additional context as well. So let's start out with Michael Merowitz is our first guy. We're just going to do two tonight. So Michael Merowitz is our first team breakdown. I broke down Michael's team a little earlier in the season, and we're going to do it again here today. So let's go through his team really quick. So he's got Josh Allen, Rico Dowdle, Breece Hall, Emeka Egbuka, Ted McMillan, Jake Ferguson, Woody Marks, Brock Purdy, and it is a Superflex league, which if you don't know what Superflex is, it basically means you have two quarterbacks starting at your starting lineup. Seahawks defense, which is great. Eddie Pinheiro. On the bench, Jamar Chase with a suspension. Jackson Dart, Aronde Gadsden, Josh Jacobs, Ricky Pearsall, Wan'Dale Robinson, and Cortland Sutton. And Amarian Hampton on the IR. So here's some kind of context and some important league settings that Michael has going on. So it's an 8-man team. It is a half PPR super flex, as we just discussed. Playoffs are beginning week 15. And the trade deadline is on the 3rd of December. So that's still a couple of weeks away. So ideal situation for you, because we're going to be able to go through some trade ideas to help your team get better. Trades that have already been made. Drake London, Daniel Jones, Woody Marks for Ted McMillan, Bill Krosky, and Sam Darnold. Which side did you end up on that? Let's check. So Ted McMillan, Bill Krosky, Sam Darnold. There's really no trace of any of those guys. Oh no, Ted McMillan's right here. Sam Darnold not on your team anymore. And neither is Bill Krosky. So you got wait, no, you must have picked up Woody Marks off of waivers or something. Okay, so you got the Ted McMillan side. George Pickens and Travis Etienne for Jamar Chase. So you got the Jamar Chase side. I don't love the first trade personally. Obviously, hindsight's 2020. We can't change that, so I'm not going to spend a bunch of time, dwelling on that trade. Picked up Rico, Purdy, Dart, Ricky Pearsall off waivers. Those are moves that he's made on the entirety of the season. So those are really strong moves already. Like these are key contributors that you were able to get off the waiver wire. So it kind of makes up for a trade that probably wouldn't have made myself. But again, not going to really reference that too many more times. Current record is 8-3. Some future thoughts are that you want to trade for more solid running backs and wide receivers. And you have a current waiver claim for Emmanuel Wilson and Christian Watson. Okay, so that's very interesting here. So really quick, Alias, I appreciate the super chat. Like I said, if you didn't catch this, we are doing live stream for questions tonight, but there are two team breakdowns I'm going to do tonight. Okay, so your first thing that you want to do, so you're 8-3, right? So really, like the biggest thing that I always advise people who are like in good position to make playoffs, and your playoffs are starting in week 15. So, by now, I would imagine an 8-3 team probably has a playoff spot clinched. I could be wrong. It could be one of those really competitive leagues where you've got like, a couple teams at the top and then a big middle. And so maybe there isn't a spot clinched already, but I would kind of be willing to bet that if you're not clinched already, like you're not going to miss the playoffs with 8 wins. It's just very rarely happens in fantasy football. So I would imagine you're already probably in there. So you don't need to, like, when you're 8-3, you don't want to look for massive moves, right? Like, that's just not a big situation where we need to, like, take big swings. Like, there's been team breakdowns that I did last week, for example, on some of those guys that I was doing team breakdowns for. It's like your team was like 4-6 or 5-5, and you're right on the cusp of making playoffs. Those are teams that I'm more inclined to take some really big swings on. Typically, I'm not going to advise anyone to make big swings in 8-3 teams. So obviously you've got Josh Allen. Like, he is not really needing to be moved because that guy can do what he just did last week, right? And you're 8-3, so again, it doesn't show me that you have a clear weakness anywhere else. And you really don't. I mean, your 2 running backs, the thing with Breece is we can definitely look to upgrade him. Like, that's one of the first things that I'm kind of pinpointing right now, because even with, like, your wide receivers, right? Like, Ted McMillan, it's obviously recency bias to think of him as a guy that is this high upside player. I mean, he hasn't been a high upside guy all season outside of last week. Maybe that changes. Either way, he's not really a big weakness on the team, because we know now that he can hit the big upside games, and he can also provide you those steady games as well. So that's, Breece to me is the guy who kind of sticks out right out of the gate. Jake Ferguson sticks out a little bit, but Jake Ferguson still has touchdown upside. What we could see moving forward from a guy like Jake Ferguson, I think, is kind of a Mark Andrews type of tight end, where a lot of his upside in fantasy is going to be derived in the future from touchdown upside from his quarterback. Because, with Pickens and with CD there, it definitely has made his target share more inconsistent. It's not that he can't see 8 to 9 target games anymore. I think he can. And maybe against Philly even, he sees that many. Because there's a good chance that Philly in this game coming up this week, for example, could be really targeting to stop those 2 wide receivers. And they've got great corners to do it. So, I do think that there's going to be weeks where Jake Ferguson moving forward is going to be a really good tight end, but he's not providing you the same level of consistency that he once was at the beginning of the year. Woody Marks is flex. Not ideal necessarily, but you still, like, the one piece we can't forget that you have is Jamar Chase, right? Like, Jamar Chase is sitting here just on a 1-game suspension. Now, the reason I didn't mention Josh Jacobs is because that's a little more concerning. That's a different story, because with Josh Jacobs, this is someone who we kind of have to wonder, are we getting him back next week? I mean, are we getting him back in week 14? I don't know. I mean, Josh Jacobs, we know for pretty certain he will not play this week. Like, I really can't imagine he's going to play this week. I know they said he had a chance, but I don't think that's going to happen. Like, just think of it from a team perspective, right? Like, we're facing a team we could probably beat, and they're, I don't know if we need to be like full strength with Josh Jacobs to beat this team. So I think that might be running through Green Bay's minds right now. So they'll probably play it safe this week, I bet, and then just roll him out again in week 13. If he truly could go this weekend, they'll probably sit him and just roll him out a week later. So you've also got some massive developmental pieces, right? Like, you've got Gadsden on a bye. You've got Ricky Pearsall, who is very much primed to break out at some point. I fully believe that. Wan'Dale Robinson is a solid flex on a weekly basis. Can be flexed over Woody Marks in a lot of scenarios. I agree with you. I would not play him this week over Woody Marks, but in a lot of weeks he could be. Sutton is kind of a bomb, right? Like, he's kind of a bomb player, and I think there's going to be a couple more weeks where he does have a ceiling game or two, but we can't rely on him anymore. Like, to me, clearly your wide receiver 3 is Ted McMillan. Like, your wide receiver 1 is Jamar, your wide receiver 2 is Zach Buka, and your wide receiver 3 is Ted. And in the future, it could probably be Ricky Pearsall, but I would personally rather play Ricky Pearsall most future weeks over Sutton, assuming Ricky Pearsall stays healthy. Knock on wood for that one right there. And then we've got Hampton waiting in the wings. I think Hampton is a good conversation to have because I've seen a lot of teams that I've done T breakdowns for who are holding Hampton, and they're like 4-6. And in that scenario, it's like, okay, I understand like not wanting to just drop Amari Hampton because someone else will pick him up. But my whole thing on that is like, if you're 4-6 and you're holding Amari Hampton, that's not really a player that's going to help you, win today. And so he shouldn't be clogging up roster space. Like, because most people have at least 1 or 2 players who are injured currently who could be going in the IR spot. Considering you're 8-3, it makes a ton of sense to hold on to Amari Hampton. Yeah, I mean, going through everything, because, like, as I was going through your starting roster, I kind of forgot about your bench for a second. I mean, your bench is so strong, too. Because, like, the reality is, in most weeks, you're playing Josh Jacobs over Breece Hall with Rico Dowdle. You're playing Jamar Chase most weeks over Woody Marks. And, like, you could switch out Dart for Purdy depending on matchup. So, realistically, you do not have a real weakness on this team. Like, I'll be honest with you, Michael, this is a really, really well-built team that has depth and star power. Like, you've got Jamar, you've got Josh Jacobs when he's healthy, you've got Josh Allen, obviously, you've got breakout players like Bucky, who I would personally argue he's a star already, but it's a very important contributing member to your team for certain on a weekly basis. Potential guys who could come back. Amari Hampton could come back. Ricky Pearsall theoretically could come back after this injury that he's still working through and be really dominant. Like, there's several guys that I think that you just got at every level. From a win now perspective, you've got the stars. From a developmental standpoint, you've got potential breakouts, and you've also got guys returning from injury that could really, really help your team as well. So, like, you don't have a serious weakness here. When I do these team breakdowns for winning teams, it's always kind of difficult for me because I'm like, do I lie and say, like, you should make trades? I really don't feel like when you pay for a team breakdown from me and you just ask me a free question, like anyone who asks me a free question, I will be honest with you. I have no need to lie about your situation or anybody else's. And the way I look at this team is like, yeah, I mean, in theory, I know you want to trade for more solid wide receivers and running backs, but what are you going to do? I mean, honestly, because, like, yes, Sutton, I would say, is a guy, like, I'm comfortable moving off of. Breece Hall is a guy that I could definitely make a case to move off of as well. But it's not like you've got those two guys as starters every week. I mean, those two guys are flex players at best, particularly with Sutton. I mean, Sutton at this point is like a bench warmer for you. Like, think about that really quick. In an 8-man team, and I get it, it's a shallower league, but Sutton is a bench warmer for you. Like, that's pretty high-end stuff. So I hear what you're saying about, like, trading for more solid running backs and wide receivers. I think, if anything, the one thing that I'm semi-concerned about is your tight ends. Because Ferguson and Oronde Gadsden, yes, they can both give you those big weeks, but we don't really get sustainability from either of those guys. That's the one thing that's crossing my mind right now is because, like, every week you're going to have to kind of juggle with that. Like, do I start Gadsden this week or do I start Ferguson this week? And I don't know what your personal situation is, Michael. It doesn't look like you're in here tonight, so hopefully you'll watch this after the fact and maybe be able to address it later. But to me personally, like, I think that's the only thing I have. Like, your tight ends are a little concerning. So I'm trying to think of a move here that I would personally make because I do not want to deplete any of your depth, and I really don't want to deplete your superstars because you're basically what you've got is two tight ends who are second tier. Like, you don't have Like, neither of these guys are obviously top tier. And to trade for a top tier tight end, you're going to have to give up something big. And that's what makes me reluctant to do that. But at the same time, I could see myself trading away like Ferguson and Hampton for either Brock Bowers or Trey McBride if anyone were interested in doing that. Because Hampton, if you could get somebody who's excited about the return, they need a running back, a young guy who has the breakout potential. I could see the potential in that move, and that would not weaken your team. Because, again, you have running backs. Like, you've got Jacobs, obviously, who's, in theory, probably supposed to return within the next, 2 weeks or so. And you've got Breece and Woody to fill in the gap from this point until then. So it's not like you need Hampton. And I'm not convinced that Hampton's going to be great. So, I could see myself sending out an offer, Jake Ferguson and Amari Hampton for one of those top 2 tight ends. Because that's essentially what you would need to really make it worth your while, is if you get one of those 2 tight ends. Really quick, Buffalo plans to bench Keon Coleman again tomorrow. So Keon Coleman, he clearly is not learning anything. And really quick, guys, everyone, appreciate the super chats. You guys keep your questions coming, but we're going to do this team breakdown, another team breakdown, then we'll get to the questions afterwards. Yeah, I think that the only thing that makes sense to me in your situation is if you went ahead and just took Jake Ferguson and you packaged him together with Amari and Hampton, because I don't want to package him with Breece, because Breece matters to you now, especially with Josh Jacobs missing an uncertain amount of time, and I don't want to package Rico or Josh Jacobs. So the one guy that makes sense to me to move off of to get the real tight end upgrade is Hampton and Jake Ferguson for the big tight end upgrade, either McBride or Brock Bowers. So that's one thing I would shoot out to those other owners right there. Gauge their interest and see if they have interest in getting a running back who's young, coming off an injury, in time for their playoff run. Build it up like that, right? Because that's what you want them to believe. If they need running back help, they'll definitely appreciate that and won't scoff at the offer, but maybe they won't take it. But either way, my point being is that you don't need to be desperate for trading. You are in no position to be desperate. Jamar will come back. Josh Jacobs probably comes back, so you don't have to worry too much. I'm not worried about your running backs. I'm worried about your tight end, if anything. That's the only thing I can think of. And so, again, even with the tight ends, man, you're not in position where you have to be desperate. You don't. You could be very conservative and very smart about the moves that you make. So for me personally, I think that moving Ferguson with Hampton for one of those upside players, that makes the most sense to me. You said you got on here late, picked up Tet, Bill, and Darnold. Had JD5, but the injury dropped Darnold and picked up Dart. Yeah, I agree with that move. Yeah, like I said, don't want to harp on the first trade because I like having Ted for the playoff run, but you recovered at quarterback, so there's no need to harp on this one. I mean, your quarterbacks are really solid. Allen does it himself a lot of weeks, and then you obviously have the upside with Purdy in certain weeks, and you're going to have the upside with Dart in certain weeks as well. So, yeah, I think ultimately you've got no real issues. I mean, obviously you're going to have to do a different kicker this week because Pinheiro is probably not going to play. But, I mean, that's a small fee to move off of Pinheiro and get a different guy. Because I do think that ultimately this team has championship written all over it. To be completely honest, I think for those of you who have gotten team breakdowns from me, I'm an honest guy. I don't BS. I don't sugarcoat. I will tell you if your team's got a problem and I want you to address it. I do not see a pressing issue with this team, Michael. And I know I broke down, I don't know if it was this team or a different team, but I know I broke one down for you early this year. All I can tell you is this team is ready to go. The only thing I'm considering here is the tight end move. So just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. No more context. Yeah, I guess I'm curious. Did you get Watson and Wilson? Because if you got Wilson, that's key. Watson and Wilson are very key. And I'm not sure who you dropped for those two guys. The two guys I would probably drop are like Wandale and I guess Sutton. Those are probably the two guys that I would drop. I think I'd keep Woody over Sutton. Yeah, but overall, man, I like this team a lot. Like, and you said you clinched playoffs 2 weeks ago. Perfect. Like, you are really not in position to where you need to make big moves. This has championship written all over it. Yeah, I mean, that's really the big thing. I will say this. Thinking about, so this doesn't really matter for you. Panthers do have a bye week in week 14. So, again, if you were in position to where you needed to clinch still, this would be more of a big deal. Or if your playoffs started in week 14, it'd be more of a big deal. But if your playoffs don't start then and you're already clinched, like, it's not a big deal at all. Michael, great work. Great work building this team. Round of applause. Michael, that's a great team. Appreciate the opportunity to do a team breakdown. And again, you guys can also do team breakdowns as well. If you have interest, I do offer personalized team breakdowns. We'll do them here on the live stream. You guys are more than welcome to submit your teams to me through our email, fsroundup.com. And I will do team breakdowns for you as well. Now let's get into the last team breakdown, and then we will get into the questions tonight. So please stay with me, guys. Appreciate all the super chats and appreciate your patience. This is the last team breakdown, and then we'll get into it. So this one is for Daniel Yoon. So Daniel went, this is an interesting thing that you actually did for me, which anyone who gets team breakdowns from me, the more amount of context and league settings you can give me, that's the best, right? Because this guy went above and beyond. Daniel sent me his roster along with everyone else's roster, and he also sent me their ranking, their points for, and who's most likely to trade on a scale of 1 to 12. So I really appreciate that. Like that, the more context you can provide me, the better we'll be off. So the team Daniel has assembled is Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, Alec Pierce, Bijan Robinson, Travion Henderson, Trey McBride, DeAndre Swift at the flex. Kicker is Cairo Santos. Santos' defense is the Falcons' defense this week. Kyle Monangai on the bench. Deebo Samuel on the bench. Jacoby Myers on the bench. The Patriots' defense on the bench. Tyler Algier on the bench. And the New Orleans Saints' defense on the bench. So, first thing that's jumping out to me right out of the gate, and we'll get into it a little bit more here in a little bit. I'm not a huge fan of having 2 defenses, let alone 3, on my roster. Now, I kind of feel like I see what you're doing. I feel like you're setting yourself up, like particularly with the Saints defense. That feels like a playoff move because I remember breaking down playoff defenses and saying, I don't know how the Saints are not a top 12 defense for the playoffs with the schedule they have. And so that feels like a playoff move. And if that's the case, that's okay. Like, I'm more willing to accept that than if you were like planning to play the Saints this week potentially. And I actually could see the argument for that too, considering it's against the Falcons who have no Drake London or Michael Penix. But 3 defense is excessive. So it's a 12-man league, half PPR, scoring. Playoffs begin in week 15. Trade deadline is the 3rd of December. So again, we've got another couple weeks here before the trade deadline, and you're currently in 3rd place. And your future thoughts are most league mates are open to trades and some aren't, and we'll go through that here more in a minute. And how does the team look for the playoffs? Any moves, suggestions to make? Should you make trades for a better receiver? And should you keep or trade Travion Henderson? So that's one that I would like to go through because it really clearly matters to you. You asked about a particular player and if you should be trading for that player. Okay, so let's go through this really quick. So your quarterback situation is obviously great. You've got Lamar Jackson, and I mean, some people may think it's not great. Like, having Lamar has not been the same necessarily as having him in previous years. I still think it's great. I still think the upside for 30-point games is there, and I think that, you know, with a better schedule moving forward, I think we'll start to hit more of those upside games. So Lamar is not a guy that I feel like you need to move off of, especially considering your third place in your league right now, which is, you know, again, really solid. Deebo Samuel and Alec Pierce as your two main wide receivers is concerning. And I think both of those players have room as flex options, to be clear. Like, I think they're both flexible on a weekly basis. And I liked Deebo a ton at the start of the year. Haven't been as big on him down the stretch without Jaden Daniels. But I definitely am not trashing having Deebo or Pierce, who has been a total breakout this year. But I will say, having them as your two best wide receivers, like looking across the league right here, since you provided everyone's teams, it's probably the worst combo of starting wide receivers. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that. But let's keep going through it because we're going to provide context. So Bijan and Travion, in theory, could be lethal. Like, in theory, down the stretch, I could make the case it's one of the better running back duos you've got in the league. I mean, Bijan is about to get peppered with work, in theory, because there's no Drake London. Michael Penix is not there, so there'll be a lot of checkdowns to Bijan Robinson. I could make the case that Bijan would be really good moving forward. However, I did say on today's running back rankings video, little concerned about Bijan. Travion, I've got not similar concerns because I know that Bijan is going to get work. Travion, my concern with him is that if I have learned anything from watching Mike Vrabel over the years, it's that the guy is very, very conservative with his rookies. And my hope is that he's taking the leap and just saying, hey, listen, you earned the job. I mean, 5 touchdowns in 2 games without Ramondre, like, dude, you're here. You're here and we can't ignore you anymore. That's my hope. That's my hope, is that he's learned and that he has figured out that he can trust and rely on this guy for the long term. So I'm hoping that that's the case. Again, in theory, your running backs here could be an electric duo for the playoffs. Now, theory isn't always the best, because in theory, you should be great, but it is not set in stone like it would be if you had McCaffrey and Achane, right? Like, those two guys, it's not a theory. We know that those two guys are great as an RB1, RB2 combo. This one, in theory, could be great. So we'll keep that in mind as well. Your tight end, Trey McBride, obviously doesn't get any better than that right now. I would put him above Brock Bowers. So your tight end could either be a central piece or it could be trade bait. I'm kind of thinking we're going to make some trades here, to be honest with you. DeAndre Swift as your flex, very solid. Your running back room is not an issue because you've got Monangai as well as a handcuff, and you've also got Algier as a handcuff for Bijan. So, like, you've got your running backs are very, very set as far as I'm concerned personally. So your wide receivers are really the concern that I've got in your particular circumstance, because it looks to me like you only have one bench wide receiver, that being Jacoby Myers, because you put Deebo Samuel twice on here. So I'm kind of thinking that you just have Jacoby Myers. And so that to me is very, very scary. Like, again, all 3 of those guys are flexible. None of those guys should be consistent starts. None of them. I mean, Debo, again, if Jaden had been healthy all year and they were clicking all year like they were at the beginning of the year, I would say I'm totally okay with having Debo as a weekly wide receiver too. I had him ranked there for a long time. But we are not in that place. Debo, what he just did last week, that was like the best he had done in like 2 months. I am not relying on that every week moving forward if I can afford to move off of it. Alec Pierce, I like him as well. And maybe I'm even undervaluing him because I think he's probably arguably the better option than Debo moving forward. I really do believe that. So you're in third place right now. And from a points scored perspective, it looks like you're in first in points scored. So very strong. I mean, you're in first as far as points scored, so that means you're only in third because you've been outscored in certain weeks. So there's nothing you could do about that other than improve your ceiling, which is what we're going to try to do here in a minute. And likely to trade. So who is your impossible? Rahul is impossible to trade with. He's at 12. Matt is at 11, meaning that he's very unlikely to trade. Dimes is at 10, unlikely to trade. JJ, 9, not great odds. Bears below, not great odds. 7 and below is kind of what I would say we should target here as far as trade ideas. So you're currently in third. You've got the most points scored in your league. I would say you're in really good shape to make the playoffs for certain. Like, I don't think that playoffs is a question for you. I think that you're in the playoffs, considering you're third and you're first in points scored. First question is, so how does the team look for the playoffs? Like I said, basically outside of the wide receivers, I'm pretty good with this team. Like, I wouldn't say I'm wild about it, to be completely honest with you, because you've got potential weaknesses at running back that could pop up, but I would ultimately say I'm not as concerned with that because you have the handcuffs to each of those pieces. Bijan is the piece that scares me the most, to be honest with you, because Bijan could, in theory, tank a little bit. Not tank, but like he could not provide you the great 30-point ceiling that he just gave you last week without Cousins and without London. But he also could, in theory, because they will have no choice but to use him. So I can see both sides of that coin. Your big concern and your elephant in the room is 1,000% wide receivers. Debo Samuel and Alec Pierce and Jacoby Myers, it's just not going to cut it. I will not let, if I have any power over my audience's decisions, I would not let anyone go into the playoffs looking like that, a wide receiver. So here's the problem, is that you're really top heavy and your bench isn't super deep, partly because you have 3 defensive options. You've got to cut bait with one of them. First things first is one of these defenses, they've got to go. And for me personally, the first one to go is Atlanta. Like, I am very willing to move off Atlanta. And clearly, I would say that either you haven't watched my videos or you've watched it and you don't agree with my ranking of Atlanta's defense this week, which is not in the top 12. And I've already gotten a lot of people who disagree with me on that, so maybe you guys are right, maybe I'm wrong. I don't love Atlanta's defense this week. I just look at that team as a massive problem because everyone looks at New Orleans and says, oh, New Orleans, I want a defense that plays New Orleans. New Orleans can put up points. Like, and if what we saw with Tyler Shug is real, he will put up points against Atlanta, who is in the tubes too. So to me personally, like, people have to start adjusting their expectations for the Falcons moving forward more than anything. So to me, the first defense that's got to go is Atlanta's. Now, I like your idea of keeping 2 defenses because, again, I don't see you in here tonight, Daniel, but I'm assuming that your thought process is one of those defenses, probably New Orleans, is a playoff defense. I don't have a problem with keeping a playoff defense, but I definitely don't want 3. Like, one of these defenses has to go. For me, the order of how they would go is Atlanta's, New Orleans, New England's. That's how the order would go as of right now. But if I only cut one, it's definitely Atlanta. So Atlanta's defense to me has got to go. They've got to go. You've got to free up roster space to go pick up somebody on the wire. Whether it's Bashul Tootin, I'm not sure if anyone in your league has Bashul Tootin. I do not see anyone with Bashul Tootin in your league. So that's one of the first guys I would pick up. That's a guy who clearly has upside to be a running back 1 in the future for his team. And it does not appear that Bashul Tootin is rostered anywhere. But you see what I'm getting at. And the point ultimately that I'm trying to drive home is that you should not have 3 defenses. You should be targeting another depth running back or another depth wide receiver. Probably in your case, what would be better is a depth wide receiver. Watson is probably already rostered. I don't see him anywhere, but I might just be missing him. I did see Darius Slayton rostered, so you can't get him. But there is no need for 3 defenses. That is way too many. I get back to looking at this roster and how I can improve it. Again, the problem is you're top heavy. So if you move off of someone to move to get better wide receivers, you're going to have to let go of someone valuable. And I know that hurts, but the balance of your team is off. Like, you are very, very set at tight end, and you're very set, in theory, at quarterback. And your running backs are really good too. I think, to me, the move that makes the most sense is potentially Lamar Jackson. Like, getting Lamar and packaging him together with, like, packaging him together with either a Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo Samuel's the play. Because Lamar and Deebo, they both have the big name clout, right? So Lamar is going to be worth a lot. And Deebo himself is worth like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 price point. So what I would personally do if this was my team is I would start floating around the idea of Lamar Jackson and Deebo Samuel for a quarterback downgrade in a sense, but someone that we can still hold on to and say, I'm comfortable with him as my starting quarterback to provide me 20 points a game. Herbert comes to mind. Baker comes to mind. Drake May probably is out of reach, but he does come to mind. Those are guys that I feel like you can do well with on a weekly basis and not feel like you have a weakness there. And I would try to get a massive wide receiver upgrade. Someone in the range of Rashee Rice, Emeka Egbuka, CeeDee Lamb right now I think is a solid buy low. George Pickens I think could be thought of as a buy as well. So let's kind of look through some of these rosters here. So I'm going to say let's start out with Mermaid Man since he looks like the most willing to trade outside of you. So Mermaid Man has Hurts, and he's got Rashee Rice and CeeDee Lamb. So maybe what we think is that the best move could be to get. Does he have another quarterback? No. Oh, he actually has Bashul Tootin as well. So scratch what I was saying about Tootin. But he's got Achane on the bench for bye week, obviously. And he doesn't have another quarterback. So maybe what you could do is just feel him out and see if he'd be willing to accept Lamar and Deebo for Jalen and Rashee Rice or Jalen and CeeDee Lamb. He probably wouldn't go for that. I don't think. You said he's willing to trade. That feels a little lopsided in your favor, so maybe that wouldn't be the one he would accept, but it obviously benefits you. So I would personally throw that out there. because the bottom line is here, we want to be specific with what we want. And what I think we should be targeting here is a wide receiver upgrade in the biggest possible way. And also getting a quarterback back that you can feel comfortable starting on a weekly basis and where you don't feel like you have a weakness. So let's look at Broncos. Broncos team has Daniel Jones at quarterback, who I feel a little less comfortable playing on a weekly basis. He has Jefferson and Waddle. I'm not interested in either of those receivers. So I would probably skip doing that type of trade. Not that I'm interested in Waddle, but I'm not interested enough to send away Lamar. Like that feels lopsided out of your direction. So we're going to rule out Broncos team because the trade we want to do doesn't make sense for his roster. Mean Mind, Matt Stafford is a very, very good ad, and Emeka Egbuka. This might be the one. This could be the one where you go Lamar Jackson, Deebo Samuel, give me Matt Stafford, give me Emeka Egbuka, because that would balance your team out so much more than having Lamar at the superstar power and Deebo with the occasional 20-point week. I would much rather have that stack of not stack, but I would much rather have Stafford and Egbuka starting for me on a weekly basis than I would rather have Deebo, because he's ultimately the problem. But we got to include a superstar to get a superstar back. So to me personally, that makes the most amount of sense. Off the top, like Mermaid Man, getting Jalen Hurts and Rashee Rice would be great. Probably wouldn't happen. I would say it's more likely to get Matt Stafford and Emeka Egbuka from Mean Mind. Let's look at Tokar's team. He's at a 5. Tokar has Josh Allen. You're not going to get him. And Jamison Williams. That probably, I don't think that would work, and I also don't think I'd be really willing to do that. And then let's take a look at Lewis. Lewis has Brissett, and he also has London. Doesn't work. You've got two options here. Either trade Mean Mind for Stafford and Egbuka, or trade Mermaid Man for Hurts and Rashee Rice or CeeDee Lamb, whoever he wants to give up and he's more comfortable with if he were to be interested in that trade. Those are the two that I would go after for sure. Because, again, your problem is not star power. Your problem is you don't have balance at your wide receiver position. So there's going to be weeks where Bijan won't be as good. There will be weeks, and I have concerns actively about Travion moving forward. There's going to be weeks where Lamar gives you 14 points, and if your wide receivers aren't good enough, your baseline is low. Like, your baseline is too low for the fantasy playoffs to really compete. You need a higher baseline, and I think that that's the ultimate issue here. Your ceiling is pretty solid. Like, your ceiling as we stand is really solid. It comes down to Lamar Jackson is probably a little bit overhyped right now because I don't think he's fully healthy. And I think his star power and his name power are more valuable in trades right now. So I would take him and Deebo and try to get Stafford and Egbuka or Hurts and Rice or Lamb, whichever one they're more comfortable with if they had interest. Make trades with a better receiver. Yep, we just went through that. And then the last part of it, keep or trade Travion. Here's my thing, is that we don't want to do a complete roster makeover. Like, you've made it this far because you have the running backs. Like, you have the running backs, your tight end is coming through, and your quarterback can produce those massive weeks. We don't want to mess with the upside to a super big amount. So what it comes down to is the balance is off. The balance of your team is not where it needs to be for a playoff run, and that comes from your wide receivers. So to me personally, like, Travion is a guy I want to have for the playoff run. Now, if you told me that you had an offer on the table to get, for example, like if you could get, I'm trying to think of a name because there's so few right now I actually kind of want over him. If you could get Josh Jake, not even him. I mean, he's injured. It'd have to be outrageous, man. I mean, because I think Travion is one of those guys that you probably won't get fair value from. Like, I really do believe that we have the potential to have a league-winning player here. So, in most scenarios, I don't think I'm trading him away because he's a critical part to this roster, right? Like, you're in this position where your wide receivers are so low depth that you have to start Travion on a weekly basis because Swift is always a guy who's in your lineup, and obviously Bijan's always in your lineup. You've got to start Travion every single week because he provides the most upside out of the rest of your bench. So, to me, trading Travion doesn't make sense. Even if it was for a wide receiver upgrade. It really doesn't because your flex would be so much less upside. So Travion is not the problem here. The problem is the wide receivers, and that's why I'm trying to target a wide receiver in exchange for Lamar and Debo. And I get it, like trading Lamar is uncomfortable. But again, I think what will kill you in the playoffs ultimately if you don't make a move for a wide receiver is your wide receivers. Like cuz there could be a week, and I don't wish this upon you, but I've just seen it over the years. Someone in first place, third place, second place who looks like they're crushing it. They get to the playoffs, they have one bad game from their key player, and it all crumbles. And that's just the reality of fantasy. So that's where you need the balance. You know, we just went through Michael's team. Like, his team is incredibly balanced. So, yeah, I think that you're in good position, but ultimately there is moves that we can make here to balance your team out. Daniel, again, appreciate the opportunity to do the team breakdown for you. And again, you guys can also get a full team breakdown from me, personalized advice, trade ideas, waiver ideas. We're trying to get you guys to win championships. That's what it ultimately comes down to. You can do a team breakdown. You just send me an email with your current roster. You make the payment, and then we'll break it down for you on a live stream here. But I appreciate you guys being so patient. We're going to start going through some questions. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel to show your support. This is a Q&A live stream from now on. Alias, appreciate the super chat and your patience. Same guy now wants Debo and McBride for Puka and Baker. No Bo or Debo or London this week. Okay, so Debo and McBride for Puka and Baker. You're not. Wait, are you Daniel Yoon? Alias? Because I just broke down Daniel's team. Oh, Debo or London. No Bo, no Debo, no London this week. He wants Debo and McBride for Puka and Baker. Oh, man. Because Puka, I mean, clearly, like, I've had a ton of struggles with people reaching out to me this, like, last 2 weeks with Trey McBride offers. Like, even my brother-in-law reached out to me the past several days, and he's been like, dude, should I take the offer? Like, I hate giving him McBride, but it helps my team in other ways. Here's the thing, man. Like, the one statement I'll always live by is it's so much easier to replace it's so much easier to replace tight ends with, you're not him, okay, just wanted to clarify that. It's so much easier to replace tight ends through the waiver wire than it is wide receivers and running backs. So you have to look at it from that perspective when you're splitting hairs, and you are, because McBride is great, and so is Puka. And you're going to get a quarterback here that really could do some damage in the playoffs as well, because their playoff schedule was great. So I got to tell you, man, like, I don't remember what your exact team is like and what your exact roster build is like, Alias, but I can tell you this. Ordinarily, in most situations, I favor the positional player rather than the onesie position. So that means that I favor taking the high upside wide receiver, the high upside running back over the high upside tight end. Because it's so much easier to replace a tight end or a quarterback on waivers than it is to replace a running back or a wide receiver on waivers. Like, the only way you're getting an upgraded wide receiver or running back is if you make a trade. Or if you get super lucky and get a Rico Dowdle off the wire or get a Quentin Johnson off the wire, right? Like, but those guys are probably gone. Like, unless there's injury, those guys are not going to come through the last several weeks. So you said you've got Shedeur on the bench. Yeah, I just think, man, like, in most situations, I've got to say yes. Unless your team, unless your whole team is built around McBride, and it would be devastating to your structure to give up McBride, then I think I have to take it. Like, I think I've got to take this one. So tough, man. I hate giving him up so much, and again, I've had so many questions about giving up McBride over the past couple of weeks that it like makes me sick to my stomach because I'm like, am I telling people the wrong thing? But I think I would. I want Puka and I want Baker for the playoff run, and I'd rather have them than Debo because Debo to me is the weak link in this trade. Oh man, appreciate the super chat. And I hope it works out for you because it's a very almost even trade because of McBride alone, but it's just easier to replace a tight end on the wire than it is with running backs or wide receivers. Appreciate the super chat, man. And again, appreciate your patience. IO 2004, appreciate your patience and the super chat. Question in the chat, please, big thanks. Well, thank you for being here. Again, thank you for the super chat and your patience. I need a kicker, and I must drop one. Sean Tucker, Tootin, Monty, Gadsden, Ferguson, Ravens defense, and Bucks defense. Thinking of Bucks to drop, 5-6 record. This is the perfect example of what I was discussing earlier in this video when I was breaking down teams. And I said, having two defenses on your roster is not usually a move I like. But it makes sense for winning teams who are already locked in the playoffs. If you're 8-3, if you're 9-2, if you're 10-1, and you have two defenses, I'm not going to fault you. I'm not going to sugarcoat, or I'm not going to cherry pick and say you need to get rid of one. I don't have a problem with it because the ultimate reality is that you have more than enough cushion to lose 2 games. In your position, you don't have that cushion. You're 5-6 right on the fringe. So you need to win now. And like all those players have value. All of them. Tucker has value. Tootin has value. Monty has value. Gadsden has value. Ferg has value. And I want the Ravens defense for this week. So I just like from a winning perspective, if we knew today that Bucky was not going to go, I would say Tucker's an easier drop. But we don't know if Bucky's coming back or not. So, to me, you've got to go ahead and drop the Bucs defense. Appreciate the super chat, man. Adrian, appreciate the super chat. Appreciate your patience. Hey, Ryan, is Jordan Mason droppable for Sean Tucker? Yes. Yeah, I probably didn't highlight that as much as I should have. But I have been saying over the past like couple of weeks, Jordan Mason is droppable. Because we went through that brief time when Aaron Jones returned when I said I wouldn't drop him yet because I do still think that if you look back to the weeks where he was where Aaron Jones was there, we still had Jordan Mason as the running back one by carries. The team, the thing that really broke the straw that broke the camel's back for me was that Kevin O'Connell basically, when Aaron Jones came back, he said, yeah, I mean, he just provides something we've been missing. Like, basically, it's an word of encouragement for Aaron Jones, but also a dig at Jordan Mason. And ever since then, Jordan Mason's role has evaporated. And Mason's the type of guy where he needs a lot of work to be fantasy relevant most of the time. So, yes, Tucker, to me, makes a lot of sense. Because again, if Bucky doesn't play this week, then Tucker has tons of value. And at the very worst, you're doing keep away from someone else. Appreciate the super chat. Because Jordan Mason he's just dead weight at this point. Nate Willis, good to see you in here. Appreciate the super chat and your patience. Pick 5 of these 7. He called me legend too. Appreciate that. Henry, Cook, Nakua, Odunze, Jefferson, Henderson, Michael Wilson, Henderson, Jefferson, Odunze, and Wilson are my hesitations. Yeah, Jefferson should definitely be a hesitation. Henry goes in, Cook goes in, Puka goes in for sure. And it comes down to Odunze, Henderson, Jefferson, and Wilson. So here's the thing, right? When it comes to Travion, I've said this a bunch over the years. Like this is not a new fresh beat of life. It's always how I've looked at life. I am not my risk tolerance is very high. So I acknowledge today on the running back rankings how big of a risk Travion Henderson is. It is a huge risk. I mean, there is no getting around that. There is a huge risk of this week Travion coming out and just being basically shoved back into the saddle or back into the stable, right? If he was a horse, like they could just shove him back into the stable and say, we'll call you when we need you. Because Travion, to me, has earned it. But I'm not the head coach. So if this was my team, Travion would be playing because he opens up the offense more. That's the ultimate reason why I think that when push comes to shove, Travion will continue to have a role. He's earned it. 5 touchdowns in 2 games, and not just 2 games. 5 touchdowns in the span of like 4 days. I mean, because he played on Sunday and then again on Thursday night last week. Like 5 touchdowns in like 4 days. That's insanity. Insanity. So I don't know how you can look at that and put him back in the stable. It doesn't make sense. So I'm willing to roll the dice and I'm willing to take that risk. That's just me. I understand the hesitation, but the way I look at it is I can easily pick on Jefferson and say, this is my fundamental belief, and it always has been. So Jefferson would be viewed as the safer player by most people, right? Because Jefferson typically has had a floor of about 12 points this year. To me, there's a lot of risk in playing it safe. Because let's say that you get in a shootout and you ended up needing 25 points. Justin Jefferson has no chance of doing that for you. None. Justin Jefferson he's not crossed 21 this year in a full PPR format. So there's greater risk of doing that, in my opinion, than there is of sitting Henderson. So for me, like I'd rather play Henderson than Jefferson. Odunze is a tougher argument because I think Rome should be in your lineup here. Michael Wilson, I'd play Henderson over Michael Wilson. My way of thinking about Michael Wilson is I think that Michael Wilson was the beneficiary, clearly, of all the targets. Like, he had 18 targets. You can't argue with that. What I will argue with, though, is that, I mean, all I have to do is pull up how many passes Jacoby Brissett threw. Like, it was absurd what he did this past week. I mean, I think, off the top of my head, I think it was like 57 passes thrown. If he threw 57 passes, man, like, that's not going to happen every week. It won't. And, like, this week against the Jags, I think it'll be much more competitive. It's at home. Jacksonville has to travel to the West Coast. I think it'll be a much more competitive game. So, I don't think that 57 passes is in the future for Jacoby Brissett. So, I don't think that Michael Wilson sees 18 targets again. Yeah, I think Henderson's going to go in if it was me. And the other one, I would personally lean towards Odunze, but I will say Wilson is a gut call. If you believe Wilson has this big target game again, and he's got a good matchup, and I believe he does, but if you believe that he can do it again, then I have no problem riding the lightning and doing that. Because him and Rome are very close to my rankings. Like, I'll prove it to you using the comparison feature on our site, which, by the way, like, you should be utilizing the comparison feature. Yeah, I don't know why it's not working for me. Hold on, give me a second. Let's sign out and then sign back in. That should work. Huh. Okay, that's a little bug on our site right now, so we'll get that addressed as soon as possible. But bottom line is that I think that when it comes to Rome, they're very close to my rankings, and I could see an argument for Michael Wilson or Rome. I'm leaning Rome, and it's very close. So if your gut tells you Michael Wilson, that's fine. But either way, Henry, Cook, Puka, Henderson are going in my lineup. And it's either Michael Wilson or Odunze. Jefferson's out for me. Appreciate the super chat, man. Again, appreciate the patience. Diego SH, appreciate the super chat and the patience. Good to see you in here. You did my team breakdown last week. Yep, I remember. Got Allen, CMC, Dowdle, JSN, Pittman, Higgins, Addison, Devonta Smith, J-Mo, Nix, Juwan Johnson, Kaimi Fairbairn, and Kincaid. 1 quarterback, 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, 1 tight end, 1 flex, wide receiver, running back. Want to trade for Nico? Is it worth it? Yeah, I remember we talked about some moves for your team to make, and I suggested the idea of moving off of Josh Allen. You probably were uncomfortable doing that, which is understandable. I remember thinking at the time it was the right move. Because I look back on this team, right? And excuse me. I look at this team again, and it's like you've got stars. I mean, you've got Josh Allen, you've got McCaffrey, you've got JSN, and you've got some depth too. But realistically, like, what are you gonna trade for Nico to make it worth it, right? Like, I'm looking at this, and I think, well, you could try to trade Pittman for Nico straight up, but I'm not sure how many people would do that, to be honest. If it was me, I wouldn't. Like, if I had Nico and someone offered me Michael Pittman, I'm not sending away. Because wide receiver 1-to-1 trades and running back 1-to-1 trades, any position 1-to-1 trade, it's something that oftentimes won't always happen because people feel like they're getting robbed. So it's harder to do that. I think that your best shot of doing that is to do a package deal. It's the only thing that makes sense for most people to trade him because, again, you can't send Pittman or T. Higgins or Devonta Smith straight up, and you definitely are not sending JSN. I will not let anyone do that. So, but the likelihood that you're going to be able to make it happen with just a 1-to-1 trade is unlikely. So the best way to do that is to package together I mean, your running backs are thin. I remember that breaking your team down. That was the reason I was including Allen in trades is because you're thin at you're just a little thin at running back and the other positions. I think that trading for Nico, unless you could do a 1-to-1 deal of like T. Higgins or Pittman for him, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like in theory, if someone was willing to do like Pittman and Addison or Pittman and Devonta, it would make sense. But again, I don't know if they would. But I could be very wrong. I mean, I could be very wrong. It seems like I remember you were telling me, and you're telling me tonight that like your league clearly is active with trades. So I could be very wrong. And so to me, I think that if you wanted to go ahead and send away Pittman and Addison or Devonta Smith for Nico, and they took that, then that makes sense. But I don't want to give up J-Mo, and I don't want to give up T because they're valuable depth. I'll give up Pittman and Devonta Smith or Jordan Addison, so that way I could have JSN, Nico, T. Higgins, or JMO as my wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4 combo. I'll do that all day. But I'm not sending away a running back, and I'm not sending away JSN. So yeah, I think for me personally that if you can get someone to bite on a 1-for-1 trade, Pittman or T for Nico, or you go after Pittman and either Addison or Devonta Smith for Nico, those make sense for your team, but otherwise it probably doesn't. Appreciate the super chat, man. Good to see you back in here. Kazan, appreciate the super chat and your patience. Egbuka, Hampton, and Tet for Egbuka. Details right below this. Egbuka has a better playoff schedule. I'm locked in for the playoffs, and I can also swap London with Tet to get the deal closed. So getting Egbuka, I'm on board with. Like, that's not the question. The question is which wide receiver. Because I don't have a problem giving away Hampton, and I definitely don't have a problem sending away a second injured player. So ideally, if he wants to take Drake London and Hampton, that's the move. Because like you're going to send him 2 injured players who have uncertain futures when they come back. Hampton, for obvious reasons, the guy's a rookie, and he was finding his way, but now it's been... I mean, their offensive line's been decimated. There's no guarantee that Hampton's the same player when he comes back. I have no problem giving him away. And I also would say that I'd rather keep Tet because we know that we know that Tet's healthy, and we know that like his quarterback situation is stable. Like Kirk Cousins is over. I mean that experiment is done with. Like he is so bad, and I don't trust him to deliver the ball accurately and down the field to Drake London enough when he gets back, whenever that is, because London's already been ruled out for this week, I think. Let's check on it really quick, but I'm pretty sure he's already been ruled out. Yeah, he's already been ruled out. He's week to week with his knee injury. If you can swap London with Tet to get the deal closed, do it. Like that is 100% something I'm on board with. I have no questions asked. Get Egbuka and trade away 2 injured players for him. That's ideal. That's ideal for me. Because the thing is, man, like with injured players, like I know a lot of people want to like wish and believe like Bucky Irving comes back well, and guys like Bucky Irving come back, Drake London come back, Amari and Hampton come back, Trey Benson comes back and does well. There's no guarantee of any of that stuff. I mean, they could come back in a couple weeks and be slow, and then you're down another week basically because they didn't do well. And so, yeah, I'm fully on board with London and Hampton for Egbuka. Appreciate the super chat. One sportsman like. Appreciate the super chat and your patience. Quarterback is Josh Allen. Running backs are Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, Judkins, Ginty, Marks, and Etienne. That's a strong running back room. Wide receivers are Jettas, Nico, Pittman, Pearsall, Flowers, Watson, Tyler Warren. 2 wide receiver, 2 running back, and a flex. Okay, so obviously you're not going to have Jacobs this week. I'm just going to assume that you won't. So Jacobs is out. To me, Judkins is going in. Judkins is going in. I love the matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. That, man, I try not to be too hard on teams because I know we've got fans of Raiders who watch the show, and I love you guys, but I just like to look at reality. I mean, I'm hard on the Steelers, and I'm a Steelers fan. I've got Jack Lambert, Steelers legend, over my shoulder every time I'm on here. So, like, I'm willing to go rogue and crush my own team, so I feel like I owe it to you guys to be honest always. So it's like, I'm going to crush the Raiders. They're not good. So, Judkins is in for sure. And so Judkins and Genty are my two for sure skis in the same matchup at running back. Wide receiver, Nico's definitely going in. And I will say, with Justin Jefferson and Pittman, it's relatively close, but not close enough. I think for me personally, I would much rather have Michael Pittman in the lineup this week because his quarterback is just better. And I've expressed concern they could shut him down, but I know for a fact that Justin Jefferson won't get me the ceiling that Pittman could, which is 20-plus points. I'm not even convinced that Emmanuel Wilson dominates everything. Like, I'm not convinced of that. So, yeah, I mean, I've got my own issues with Justin Jefferson. I've got my own issues with Emmanuel Wilson. I'll go with Jefferson there. I'll go with Jefferson over Woody as well, only because I think that Woody is still playing behind a really bad offensive line. You've got to take that into account. Like, you just cannot overlook the bad offensive line that he plays with. I'm sorry, but it won't get better, so you have to factor that into this. Jefferson over Etienne and him are close. I'll revisit that. But I'll play Jefferson over your other running backs outside of Etienne, who we will dive into here in a minute. Jefferson, I'll play him over Pearsall because Ricky, there's still the level of uncertainty there. Is this the week that he comes back right? In the future, I think Ricky has a higher ceiling than Jefferson. Flowers, I would play Jefferson over Flowers because Zay is one of those guys that I think probably doesn't hit a ceiling like Jefferson can. And Jefferson's ceiling is lower, but I do think Zay is capped out usually at around 11 to 13 points. Watson, I'd play Jefferson over Watson. I think Watson's in for a tougher matchup this week. Jefferson or Etienne. I think for me, what it comes down to is Etienne looked like the RB2 last week for a long time. And Bashul Tootin got hurt, and then that's when Etienne started to really finally get a big game going. But Etienne really was not the lead back. So I'll put it to you this way. They're both playing on Sunday. So you have time. If Etienne is without Bashul Tootin, because Bashul Tootin is dealing with an ankle injury, if Tootin doesn't play, I'll take Etienne. But if Tootin does play, I'll take Jefferson. Appreciate the super chat, man. Again, appreciate the patience. Alexis Bolanos, appreciate the super chat and the patience as well. I can't decide whether to start Dak or Purdy. The thing is, I got too many Dallas players. I got Dak, CD, Javonte, and Aubrey. That's a lot. And I tend to want to go with Purdy and trade Dak, but no one in my league likes to trade. Yeah, that's a bummer, man. Definitely feel for people who do not play in leagues who don't want to trade. Like, those are the worst leagues to be in. People who are inactive and don't want to trade, those are the worst leagues. I'm on board with trading Dak if you could get someone to do it. Because, of course, I don't love having that. I do not like having that many players on one team. Like, there's a limit. There is a limit. Like, my wife, it's her first year playing fantasy, and she's in a league where, like, we live in Texas, man. So, like, we're all, like, surrounded by Cowboys fans. So, it's like this one guy in her league, he's got, like, every Cowboy. And he's doing well because the Cowboys are good in fantasy, but he has down weeks as well. So, like, for me personally, I totally see what you're saying because that's a lot. Yeah, Purdy is the way I'm leaning anyways because Dak has a brutal matchup. I mean, Dak's matchup versus Philly, mind you, by the way, Dak's one really bad game this year. Well, he's had actually two bad games, but he had a really bad game in that first game versus Philly. And that was before Philly's defense looks like it does today. Like, Philly's defense today is scary. It's really scary. Being in Dallas doesn't change my perspective at all. Like, I'm worried for this matchup. Yeah, I really do think that I really do think that you can't go wrong with Purdy. On the other hand, he's playing Carolina. It's a it is a primetime game. He could easily uh, slice up the Panthers defense because the Panthers just don't play in primetime that much. Like, nobody really cares about the Panthers as much unless you're a Panthers fan. Like, obviously I watch the Panthers, like I watch every team, but I mean, Panthers are not a national brand like the 49ers are. So Purdy's used to playing under the bright lights. Panthers aren't. So I think that Purdy, from any angle, whether or not you had Dallas players on your team or not, is the better play. But I will say this, quarterback rankings, tight end rankings, not ironed out on Wednesday night until after the live stream is over. Appreciate the super chat. Just wanted to highlight really quick. we're going to get through as many questions as we can tonight. Just to make sure you get your question answered how you want it to, start a start-sit poll on our site for free. It's completely free to do this. So you can start your own start-sit poll, and you can go vote on other polls as well and get live feedback and results from the rest of the community. It's one of the best things we've added to the site. People love these polls because you get live feedback and results. We're actually making a mobile app to make this more accessible for you guys too. So stay tuned for that, because the mobile app, right now, the best way to utilize the Start Sit tool is on the desktop. We're making the mobile app so you can do it anywhere. So we're doing that. It's under development right now, and that'll be out soon enough. So Beast Mode X Bobby Bands. Appreciate the super chat, man. Good to see you in here tonight. What up, GOAT? Man, appreciate that. That's so nice. Need a quarterback and a defense. I have 8 wide receivers. Keenan Allen, McConkey, Flowers, Bucky, Debo, Devonta Smith, Lamb, and JSN. Should I drop Flowers 0 PPR? I'm okay with dropping Flowers in a non-PPR format, especially if you need a quarterback and a defense. So you have way too many receivers. Like this receiver and this receiver group in a full PPR format is pretty sweet. But the reality is, in a non-PPR format, that you do not need this many receivers. Obviously, the big ones like Lamb, JSN, Bucky, you're going to keep them. But to me, the 2 easiest drops are definitely Zay and Keenan. I mean, Zay does have big playability, but Keenan does not really, and Keenan is really dependent on targets and receptions. So Keenan is an easier drop than Zay, and I would also say Zay is an easy drop too. So you need a quarterback and a defense. You got to drop 2. I would drop Zay and Keenan easily, but Keenan definitely first. Appreciate the super chat, man. Ray, what's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Trade Travion Henderson, Devonta Smith for Diggs and Chase Brown. Oh, man. See, this is kind of what I was talking about. So earlier tonight when I was breaking down one of the teams and someone asked me my thoughts of trading Travion Henderson away, I was like, I'm really reluctant to do this because I don't think we're going to get equal value of what Travion could be. I mean, I'm serious when I say, like, I think Travion could be one of those league-winning players in the playoffs. I really do. So, Travion, for me, is really tough to give up, especially when it's just for Chase Brown. Because, like, you could take 2 receivers out of this. If we're just doing a 1-for-1 trade, I'm not taking this. Like, I like Chase Brown, but I think Travion has a higher ceiling and could be a league winner versus Chase Brown, who's on a failing team and is a house of cards. Like, that's always been my problem with Chase Brown, is that the Bengals are a house of cards. And I've said this over the weeks. If Joe Flacco gets injured, this whole thing comes crumbling down. And I get it. Joe Burrow is planning to return in week 13. Listen, guys, keep this in mind this weekend. Just when you're watching the games, when you're keeping yourself posted on all the scores and all the matchups this weekend, don't forget, the Bengals are a 7-loss team right now, and they play the Patriots this weekend. What are the chances that if they lose this week and go to 3-8, which everyone expects them to, that Joe Burrow says, you know what? What's the point? What's the point of coming back this year? Why don't I just make sure I avoid any re-injury risk and I just make sure I'm healthy for the start of next year? I have not ruled that out. And I don't know why people aren't thinking in terms of that. Bengals players are risky to me right now. Now, of course, Jamar Chase, like, you're going to want him. T. Higgins, if he has a quarterback, you'd want him. And Chase Brown's good, but again, like, for me to give off Travion, I'm just not in that space right now where I'm going to be accepting that offer. Because it's not like you're getting the big receiver upgrade. I mean, you might be downgrading. So, no, I would stick with Travion. Appreciate the super chat. Mr. Trey Cinco. Appreciate the super chat. I have Bowers. Should I drop Fannin and Loveland on my bench to pick up some of these running back handcuffs? Also, rank these wide receivers this week. Watson, Wilson, Higgins, and Tucker. So the wide receivers, Wilson is above Watson, but those are my top two. I'm sorry. T. Higgins is above both those guys. So right now, for me, and I ranked the wide receivers earlier today. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. T. Higgins at the top. Michael Wilson in second place. Christian Watson at third. And Tucker's at fourth, easily. Because for me this week, like, Watson is always intriguing because of the big play upside. But you have to pick and choose your battles. Because the one thing about the Packers is that you're not getting like super stable production from Love in the passing offense, so you have to make sure that you're picking and choosing matchups. If Love was firing on all cylinders, that would be different, right? Like you would be able to justify playing Christian Watson against the Eagles or against the Vikings, who they're taking on this week. But when Jordan Love is struggling and they're not wanting to just put the keys in his hands and say, go throw 35 times a game, then you have to pick and choose your battles because Watson is not a possession receiver. And the Vikings defense is also not a defense that you could take advantage of easily over the top. So that's why Watson's in third this week. Obviously, with Michael Wilson, you have to factor in the amount of targets the guy just got. You cannot overlook that. And the fact that Jamar Chase is not there this week definitely opens things up for him. So he's got to be in first. And Tucker's an easy last place. Yeah, I just think that Trey Tucker is really minimized. Cleveland's passing defense is also one of the best as well. So they're going to terrorize Geno Smith this week. When it comes to the tight ends, I'm more than willing to drop Fannin. Fannin is not a problem. I do not have a problem with dropping Fannin to pick up a handcuff running back. I will say this, though. I don't think that you have to drop Loveland. And I'm not usually one for having two tight ends on a roster. Loveland is a little unique, though, because I do feel like Loveland does have that breakout potential. So maybe just start with one. Maybe just start with one and drop Fannin for one of the handcuff running backs and then just move and see what Loveland does over the next 2 weeks. And if he doesn't do well and he doesn't break out, then I would say that's fine. You can drop Loveland. Appreciate the super chat. Alias, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you back here. Second league, if Dart is out, I got either Winston, JJ, Brissett, Shug, T-Law, Darnold, or Rudolph, or Young and Shador. There's more, but those are the best. I don't think Dart's going to miss this week. Just for your information. I think he returned to practice. Yeah, he returned to practice. I would expect Dart to play. But just in case. This week, the Giants are going to struggle. It's in Detroit, and Detroit's mad off a loss. Detroit is one of the last teams that I want to play off a loss. So Winston, not for me this week. J.J. McCarthy, also not for me. Jacoby Brissett makes the most sense to me. Darnold also makes a lot of sense. I think Darnold has a bounce-back week. It's in Tennessee. That's one of the worst teams in the league. I think he could pick on them. But Brissett has done nothing but do well in fantasy. Like every single week, he's been really good for fantasy football. 24 points last week, 21 points the previous week. They had a bye week in week 8, 21.8 in week 7, 21.7 in week 6. Like, he has not had a bad game yet. So, yeah, to me personally, I would much rather play Jacoby Brissett than Darnold, who I think could be really good, but he's also had disgraceful weeks. So I would much rather play Brissett. Brissett's a really solid play right now, to be honest. Not the highest upside guy, but his floor is really stable at like 20 points. Appreciate the super chat. Woodchuck's Fantasy Football. Appreciate the super chat again. If healthy, would you start BTJ, Benson, or Tucker in no PPR this week? Would you rather have Boswell or McLaughlin for the playoffs, weeks 15 through 17? I think in a non-PPR format, you've always got to weigh. You've always got to go with running backs. Like you have to value them more. So, for example, if Trey Benson plays this week, and I did not project that he plays, I don't project that he will play. I think it's more likely that he probably misses another week. But if he does play, I would play him above BTJ and easily Trey Tucker. Unless Tucker is Sean Tucker, which in that case, again, if Bucky doesn't play, I'd play Sean Tucker over Benson. So we're playing kind of an injury roulette here. If Benson is back and Tucker is the lead back, I would play Tucker. If Benson is back and Tucker is and Bucky comes back, I would play Benson. So that's how I would break them down. If both Benson and Bucky, if Benson is out and Bucky is back, then I would play Brian Thomas Jr. Because you want to have that upside. And BTJ is one of those guys, like, he hasn't been like a reception hog this year. Like, what he does is he gets like 4 catches for 90 yards or like 3 catches for 80. Like, that's what Brian Thomas Jr. has done this year. So I'll take that upside. I don't think that's the worst thing. But, yeah, it really comes down to what running backs are healthy. If Bucky is out, I'm playing Tucker regardless of whether Benson is there or not. But if Bucky is out, I'll play Benson if he plays. And I would play, if Benson is also out, I would play Brian Thomas Jr. And then the kicker I'd rather have for the playoffs, going to lean towards Boswell. It's close, I will say that. Like, I do think that Tampa's schedule is very favorable, but the problem I have with McLaughlin is that his floor is really low. And Boswell doesn't really have a low floor because the guy can kick from anywhere in any condition. McLaughlin is just not the same level of kicker that Chris Boswell is. So, to me personally, I'd rather have Boswell for the playoff push. And on that note, I will be dropping a kicker rankings for the playoffs very soon. So make sure to stay tuned. Appreciate the super chat. Diego H, appreciate the super chat. Good to see you back here. Didn't need to trade down or anyone. Someone offered Olave for Vidal. So you got Olave. I accepted that right away and traded Olave and Aaron Jones for Dowdle instead of Kyron Williams. Now I'm trying one more. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, so back to like what you were saying about the Nico trade. I still stick by what I said. I don't think it makes a ton of sense for your team to trade for Nico unless you could do a 1-to-1 trade or a 2-to-1 trade and take 2 of those wide receivers, either Devonta Smith or Addison, put them together with Pittman and send them for Nico. That's the only way it makes a lot of sense to me. Appreciate the super chat, man. Luis Perez, appreciate the super chat. Realistic expectation for Yeshivas in PPR. I think a realistic expectation for him is that he'll probably get like a realistic expectation is that he ends up with like 4 catches for 60 or 70 yards. That's realistic. Now, optimistic is 5 for 100 and a touchdown, which I do think is possible. Any receiver with Flacco works, right? Like, Flacco can distribute the ball. He's got a big arm. he can still make throws down the field. Like, it's not a problem with the quarterback. It really just comes down to, is it Fant or is it Yeshivas? Because to me, I think Yeshivas could have a big week. Because if you look at Yeshivas the last several weeks, he's been involved even with Jamar Chase there. And that's something only Burrow usually does, is involve him. But, you look at the last week against the Steelers, he had 4 targets, 3 catches for 20 yards. Then you will look at week 9 before their bye week. It's not pulling up on our site right now. But, he's been averaging, 3 to 4 targets a game with Jamar Chase. So I would imagine that doubles at least. And he gets either 6 to 8 targets. And I do think that it's realistic to expect him to come down with 4 catches for 50 or 60 yards. So for a full PPR play, that's a 10-point play probably. And I think that's fine. Yeshivas is not terribly ranked in my personal rankings. And if you want access to the full top 250 and see exactly where Yeshivas landed, you can do that by doing a premium subscription. But yeah, to me personally, I think that Yeshivas is going to be fine. In a full PPR perspective, he'll do fine for you. And I think he has a chance to be a ceiling play. I really do. Appreciate the super chat. And I will say, I'll add this to the Yeshivas part. The one other thing that I did mention on the receiver rankings today, you need to keep this in mind. T. Higgins is going to be playing up against Christian Gonzalez all game. That's a problem for him. That's a really good corner. So I would not be shocked if Yeshivas is a big game. Again, appreciate it. Code 3. What's going on? Appreciate the super chat. Pick 2. Jennings, Wandale, Pierce, Watson, half PPR, 1 tight end, Theo or Fant is what I'm assuming you're saying. Okay, so the wide receivers pick 2, Watson, Pierce, Wandale, or Jennings. Pierce is easily in. Pierce has a high ceiling in any week and really a stable floor. I'm kind of curious to see what the rest of the community did with Pierce this week in their rankings, because to me, he belongs. This is a player who's just done nothing but produce every single week, and a lot of times he's their wide receiver 1 by targets. So Pierce is a no-brainer to me. Watson will be my wide receiver 2. I will say, I am pretty out on Giants this week. I do not want to play the matchup against the Lions. I think that's a really, really tough ask. So I'm pretty out on Giants players. So for me, Watson is a better play because at least we know that his quarterback can play against any team. And he doesn't have the disadvantage of playing an offense opposite him that's going to put up tons of points, and he just loses confidence. And so Watson, for me, I would still play over Jennings and Wandale. I've heard a lot of people that say I am definitely overhyping Ricky Pearsall and underhyping Jennings. I hear that argument, and I don't think it's unfair, but I just don't think that Jennings is the same ceiling play as Ricky. And I do think once Ricky, and maybe it's this week, but once Ricky is fully back, Ricky resumes as their wide receiver 1. So yeah, for me personally, I would go with Pierce and Watson. And then Theo or Fant, I'm going to go with Noah Fant this week. I'm going to take the shot on the Bengals without Jamar Chase, spreading the ball out more. And I do think it's beatable to a point, the Patriots matchup. Again, I'm pretty out on Giants this week. So Theo, I don't think it's the best week for him. I'm going to go with Fant. Appreciate the super chat. And Diego, again, appreciate the super chat. Used to have Aaron Jones and Vidal instead of Dowdle. We were trying to get Kyron or Dowdle with Allen or Devonta Smith plus Bo plus Jones or Addison. Yep, I remember now. Yeah, no, getting Dowdle was a great move for your team. That to me, and I know you said, I remember you telling me that you wanted him, so I'm glad you were able to get him at a great price. Like you maneuvered things very well. So props to you. Props to you. You kind of, it seems like you're kind of alluding to the fact that you probably had that trade for Vidal fall into your lap, which is great, because it was the time to move off of him. But yeah, I mean, you clearly made some moves that are going to help your team down the stretch. Like, having Dowdle definitely increases the overall upside of your team. Because I remember you going through the team, and you had a clear weakness at running back, too. And yeah, I'm glad you were able to upgrade. So, yeah, no, this is great. So, I'm glad that you were able to do that. Appreciate the super chat, man. All right, we'll answer as many questions as we can over the next 10, 15 minutes, and we'll probably get out of here. Real Happy says, trade Saquon, Devonta Smith, and Kittle for Etienne and Warren, trying to prepare for playoffs. I am totally on board with trying to get Etienne and Warren, yes. Saquon obviously offers tons of name value, and so does Kittle. Kittle backs it up with play, but Saquon is not really this year. So, yeah, I would absolutely do that trade and get Etienne and Warren. Raiders or Lions defense, I personally am going with the Lions. Jacoby Myers, a league winner. I kind of doubt it. I don't feel like Jacoby Myers is a big play threat enough, and I don't think that he's going to dominate every week in targets with Brian Thomas Jr. back. I mean, the 2 games without Brian Thomas Jr., and I get it, he just got there, so it's kind of unfair. But, he's had 9 targets over 2 games. That's not really league-winning material. And when Brian Thomas Jr. gets back, I don't see that number going up too much, if much at all. So probably doubtful on the Jacoby Myers as a league winner idea. Katamari, start Hollins, Yeshivas, or Dortch. This is where I'll go with Yeshivas. I really do think, I actually think I need to adjust Yeshivas in my rankings and move him up, because as I talk about him more, I see more upside here for him. I think Dortch has his own amount of upside. I mean, he did well last week too. Everyone in Arizona as a pass catcher did well, basically. I mean, Dortch had 18 points in a full PPR format. Can't scoff at that. But I do think Yeshivas without Jamar Chase and with T. Higgins being matched up on Christian Gonzalez, it really does open things up for him and Noah Fant. So I'll go with Yeshivas. Ricardo Martinez, what's going on? Do I think Bucky plays Sunday? Until I see different, my mentality is he's not going to play. Same thing with Godwin. Same thing with Benson. Same thing with Amari and Hampton. These guys where it's because, compare him to Kittle really quick, right? George Kittle, we had the timeline very early, and he returned at the timeline. Hampton, Bucky, Benson, all those guys, Godwin, they all had a timeline, and they're well past that. And actually with Bucky, we never had a timeline. That makes me even more unstable. So until I get proven otherwise, I did say that I do think Bucky does come back this week, but I could see a world where he doesn't. I could tell you that right now. So I'll project it for now, but I mean, it's better to have options. You should not fully 100% be believing Bucky plays. And if he does play, I do see a lot of split backfield potentially in his first week back. Caleb Hamilton, for my running back 2 spot this week, should I start Wilson, Tootin, Ramondre, or Benson? For the flex, same options as running backs, but I also have Loveland and Tez Johnson in consideration. I would personally start Wilson as my running back 2. Tootin, I don't trust the workload and the injury now factored in. That makes it a little more tricky too. Benson, I'm going to hold off on him until I see him back. if I can. And you can with Wilson this week, I think. And then your flex, I would say that's a range where I could see playing Benson. If Benson plays, I would probably play Benson over those options. But if Benson doesn't play, I would probably end up playing. Tez Johnson as that flex. That's what I would do probably. Chris Coate, what's going on, man? Good to see you in here. User IF, what's going on? Tootin or Algier? I would personally go with Tootin. If Tootin plays, Tootin is the answer for me for sure. I think he has upside to be their running back one. Would you wait? Damian Sanchez asks, would you wait for Bucky or play Woody tomorrow night? I would personally probably play Bucky. Or I'm sorry, I would probably play Woody and just avoid that headache. Because Bucky plays on Sunday night. Alias, appreciate the super chat. If Burrow plays this week, would you play him over Dart? Burrow's not going to play, is he? If Joe Burrow plays, that is a game changer for them. Not for fantasy, probably. He was a full participant today. Look at that. Holy shoot. Holy crow, man. Holy crow. Joe Burrow. Full participant, man. That is interesting. That is a development that I did not see today. No, I don't think I would do it, though. Because, to me, I said this last week when we first got the news that Burrow was planning on returning soon. My problem with Burrow when he comes back is that I kind of think of it as if Burrow is starting a new season. Because Burrow hasn't played since week 2, right? So, he's missed a lot of football. And historically over Burrow's career, you can look back and vet this everywhere. Burrow has done poorly for the first, several games back for fantasy football and in the NFL in every single season. And every single season, ironically, he's been basically coming off an injury to start the new season. So, there's just a correlation there that I don't trust. So, Dart, I'd rather play him off the concussion because it's not like he had, a lower body injury where it affects his mobility like it does with Burrow. Dart, to me, I'm still going to play Dart over Burrow. Appreciate the super chat, man. Kyle Baker, should I start Dalton Schultz or Loveland this week? I'd go with Schultz. Davis Mills has done well with the pass catching options there. And Loveland, to me, is still in this wait-and-see mode. Woody, Michael Wilson, or Emmanuel Wilson this week? I would personally go with Michael Wilson. He's well ranked above all those guys. Butker or Houston's kicker? I would go with Houston's, which will be I would imagine. I think it's Fairbairn. I think he got confirmed. Yeah, Fairbairn's gonna play. So Fairbairn, yeah, is definitely the guy. Super nice. What's going on? Detroit or the Saints defense? I would personally go with Detroit this week. Saints, I don't trust them still. D-Manin is Wiener. What's going on? I have Allen, Henderson, Chase Brown, and Lamar. Lamb. Or, I'm sorry. Allen, Henderson, Chase Brown, Lamb, Jamar, Gadsden, Marv, J-Mo, Debo, 5 and 6. 10-man, half PPR. Got offered Bowers and Pittman for CD. Oh, man. I don't think Bowers is pulling the trigger that much. I really don't think that he's moving the needle too much. I'd probably stick with CD. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'd stick with CD. Ken Dodalik, what's going on? Christian Watson or Yeshivas this week? I would personally go with Christian Watson. E. Diesel, yo, Ryan, no question tonight. Thanks for the content and insights over the long season. Well, I appreciate that. I just love being here with you guys, man. Honestly, like that fantasy football and football, like I was telling my wife this, like I get really depressed when football season starts to wind down because this is what I love. So, like, it just means a lot to be able to come here and like talk to you guys about fantasy. More than anything, that's what it's all about for me. And we're trying to build a community around that here at FS Roundup. So, appreciate you being in here. Airplane lover, start Kyron or Henderson full PPR. I would personally go with Kyron. Safer option. And just as high of a ceiling, probably. Jorge Senior, what's going on? Got offered Jamar Chase from Mike Kittle and Dowdle. Your thoughts? Thanks. It depends on your entire team makeup, I would say, but I'm leaning against it. It's two really good players for one guy that I really do think is awesome, obviously, but the Bengals, man, I just don't feel comfortable trading for Bengals players. Like it has to be like if it was Jamar for like Kittle and like Michael Pittman, that'd be different. But I mean, Dowdle is a running back 1/running back 2. So I don't feel the same. I'd probably hold. Kaimi Fairbairn or Jake Elliott, easily Fairbairn. Or Michael Badgley, still easily Fairbairn. One Sportsman, thank you for your time. You take care and time with your analysis, and it's absolutely worth it. Big fan. Again, appreciate y'all being in here, man. Like, I genuinely can't say anything else other than the fact that, the reason I take so much time on every single question is because thoughts run through my brain like this every day. And it's just I want to give you guys the full attention you deserve. And I just love talking about it too. So I love it. Shaheed or Pierce, I would personally go ahead and play Alec Pierce. Shaheed needs more time to develop chemistry with Darnold. Bijan and Kyron or Javonte for McBride and Jamar. I'd probably try to give away Javonte and Bijan. I'd rather keep Kyron, I think. It's close. It really is close. I'm fine with either because I do like that upside of getting McBride and Jamar. You're going to get the best player at a onesie position and a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy, so I'm okay with doing that. Tootin or Algier, yeah, like I said, I'll go with Tootin. KPTN, Clutch Pants, what's going on? Pick one for the flex, full PPR. Benson, Pierce, Marks, Pearsall. I'll go with Ricky because, again, I think Ricky is going to be the guy that ultimately benefits the most. Aside from Kittle, the wide receiver that benefits the most from Brock moving forward. Brock and him developed chemistry, and I do think Ricky, when fully healthy, is the wide receiver 1. So I think we're a step closer to that this week. Katamari, start Wandale, Emmanuel Wilson, or Mooney. I would personally go with Wilson. I'll go with Wilson over Mooney for sure. Mooney is not that highly ranked for me, guys. To be honest, this week I do not. I need to see it first. Like the only week we have where Cousins played, ironically, London didn't play in that game either, and Mooney played, and Mooney did nothing. So like I'm not doing that again with my audience. And then Wandale again. I'm fading Giants players this week. Coffee Holic said, "Same man. It's so boring when football is gone." Yeah. I mean, I love my time off. Like I said, I'm a big golf guy. And again, I floated this last night on the live stream. Floyd toying with the idea of doing a golf content creation YouTube channel in the off season. It will only be off season. It's not going to interfere with football season next year and years beyond that. I'm completely committed to football, but floating with the idea of doing some golf content in the off season. So curious to know if anyone likes it, because I love golf. I love going on vacations and stuff. Like, I love the off season and I love summertime, but yeah, I miss football every year when it's gone. And then we'll end on this. Sarte says, "Hey, just wanted to say I came into this season knowing nothing about football, and even though my team is killing me, you are defo my favorite fantasy YouTuber, so thank you for everything this year." Man, you guys, very complimentary tonight. All I can say is I'm proud and appreciative to be a part of your journey, and it's just fun. Like I just love this game, and so I'm happy to be your favorite, and I'm happy that you're here tonight, Sartes, and I'm glad that you're a part of us, because you know this is what I do, and this is I can't see myself doing anything else. So yeah, you guys make everything possible. And I love you guys because we all share a common interest in football. And there's nothing I'd rather be talking about at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm also a bodybuilder. Former bodybuilder. If you can't tell, I am not exactly in bodybuilding shape anymore. I used to do it. Gave lessons to Arnold. Yeah, man. I used to do men's physique bodybuilding. That was my past life. That was when I was in college, and I was like really into it. Ironically, what got me into it was I played football throughout my entire upbringing, and I quit football my junior year of high school, and I needed to fill that void, and so weightlifting became that. And so I started lifting, started competing, and then decided I wasn't willing to do the, let's just say, alternative route. No judgment to anybody who chooses to do the, enhanced performance enhancement substances. No shade to anybody who does. I chose not to. That's not really my thing. So once I hit my ceiling in there, I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to make it pro as a bodybuilder. So I want to go back to the sport I love ultimately, which is football. And yeah, I've definitely just, I like to eat too. I like to eat and I like to drink. So it wasn't a long-term fit. But again, love you guys and appreciate y'all being in here. If you do want a team breakdown like we went through earlier tonight, you can get a team breakdown and you can email me at that email right there, fsroundup.com. Email me your roster, and once the payment goes through, we'll break down your team on a live stream like we did tonight. And if you just want access to the top 250 rankings and the waiver tool, the comparison feature, which we will have back up working here soon as possible, that is the premium subscription on here. And if you just want to do start sit polls, those are completely free. Coffee Holocaust, what positions you play? I wish I got to play. I had an injury that prevented me from doing contact sports. So we'll end on this. Just a little backstory, I guess, for me. Wide receiver. So I started out playing quarterback when I was young. And then we had someone I grew up with. He was just a better quarterback than me. So I switched to receiver. And receiver is where I had the most fun. I loved playing receiver. I also played safety and a little bit of corner. And back in the day, I was like much more agile and a lot skinnier than I am now. So like I got away with doing that, especially at corner, which is hard. But receiver was where I had the most fun. And that's kind of why, like I always say, in the off season, I'm very, very, I would say I'm much better at evaluating wide receivers than I am with running backs who are coming out of the draft. Not that I'm not good at running backs, but I definitely have a lot of confidence in my receiver analysis because I played and I studied guys who were great route runners. So, yeah, receivers where I had the most fun. But yeah, love you guys, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Peace out, guys.